Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Stewart. I'm the CEO of QC Copper and Gold. We have just renamed and rebranded the company effective last week. We used to be called Power Ore, but we called it QC Copper to reflect the jurisdiction we're operating in, which is, of course, Quebec, and the fact that we are now squarely focused on copper and gold. And this webinar here is made in the first week of October 2020. It's very interesting times. And we've called it Copper is Coming. And we say that for a number of reasons, because we do have a macroeconomic thesis on copper, which relates very much to how attention will be paid to the juniors. And the juniors are the people that explore for copper and may not benefit from the upside appreciation in copper metal that's occurred since March of this year, when it's gone from $2 to $3. Freeport-McMoRan benefits from that extra dollar of margin. However, the exploration companies have not. But that's why we say this wave of interest is coming, because there is a lag and it's inevitable. We believe it's just a function of time. So if you can afford to be a little bit patient and you're looking for a high quality company with a great asset and a great team who hasn't run yet, and a lot of the juniors have already run, I suggest look no further than QC Copper and Gold. We're traded on the Venture Exchange under the symbol QCCU. So let's get started. This is the ubiquitous forward-looking statement, be forewarned. So the agenda for today's webinar, I am going to just briefly touch upon QC Copper and Gold, why we refocused in our new brand. Then I'm going to talk about our group, our broader group, which QCCU fits into. It's called the OR Group. It's a group of entrepreneurs based here in Toronto in Canada, and we've got geologists, engineers, finance people, legal, marketing, etc., CFO. We acquire and develop resource opportunities, and we've done so quite successfully. We've got a fairly substantial group here that has been successful in the gold and the uranium space, and I think this setup for copper is quite good. Then we're going to talk about our copper metal thesis, the macro, why I do believe copper is going to continue to be good. Not copper metal, it's going to continue to go over $3, and how that's going to play out and benefit the juniors. And then we're going to review, of course, our project, which is called the Opamisca Copper Mine Complex. It's in the Chibougamau district of Quebec. Quebec, of course, being a world-class jurisdiction. And this project was, in its day, a world-class copper and gold mine run by Falconbridge, who is now Glencore. We pulled well over 1 billion pounds of copper and 1 million ounces of gold out of high-grade veins. Okay, and so our thesis here that we've had on this project is that not only are there some of those high-grade veins left, but there is the deposit itself, how we view it, is disseminated in the host rock near surface in an open pit. So we'll review what we've done, well, how we had that thesis, what we've done to prove it, and what we're going to do going forward, what shareholders can expect through the balance of 2020 and 2021. So, as I said, QC Copper and Gold, we just relaunched the name. We focused the messaging because I think that needed to happen. Changing the name in effect doesn't mean anything, but we've improved our message, which I think the company has been overlooked, and I think that's the opportunity right there. If you simply look at our market cap, which is $7 million, relative to the amount of cash and the amount of shares we have in another company called Baseload, which I'll explain, that's $11.5 million in cash and marketable securities relative to just a hair over $7 million market cap. To me, that says value. And I think my evidence of value, or my belief in value, is evidenced by how much shares I've been buying over the past 6 months in this company, because I've seen this trend. And I think you get this copper project, the Opamisca project, in effect, for a negative value. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. But that's an inefficiency that is so prevalent in the juniors if you know where to look. And so that's what QC Copper offers right now. When we launched this new company, I should note we've got a brand new presentation. I think it's a phenomenal presentation, and a brand new website. So if you go to qccopperandgold.com, you can check it out. But I think if you are looking for a company that has not run, look no further. So Baseload, this is a transaction that is a corporate transaction. So QC Copper and Gold, about 6 months ago, vended a non-core asset in Ontario as a silver cobalt asset. We sold it to Baseload. And since then, Baseload is IPO'd, and it's up 600%. Why? Because uranium is also very interesting, just like copper. But Baseload is run by a guy by the name of James Sykes. He's a very well-known uranium exploration geologist who specializes in the Athabasca Basin. He's had tremendous success. He's got a cult-like following. And of course, we are involved with this group, as in full disclosure. But QC Copper owns 63% of this company. Okay, so and and that vastly exceeds our market cap on a mark-to-market basis as if we stay there October 2nd. So Baseload's worth $17 million. QC Copper owns 63% of it. Plus, it's got $1.5 million in cash. Plus, it has the most interesting copper and gold exploration project in Eastern Canada. So that's a little bit about Baseload and how that applies to QC. And let's talk a little bit about who we are. And if you are investing in the junior resource business or any sort of small cap company, I have to emphasize that people are the most important thing. So do your due diligence on our team, on myself and the people that I surround myself with, who are all top notch. We all care about what we do. And this represents itself in this group of companies we've put together. We call it the OR Group, but that it comprises Mustango River Resources, Ore Finders, Baseload Energy, American Eagle Gold, and of course, QC Copper. We're heavy on the geologists. The gentleman that's responsible for QC Copper on the technical side is our VP of Exploration, Charles Baudry, who we've recently put squarely in charge of this. So his duties are here. He's had nearly 30 years of experience in Chibougamau, and particularly looking at this project, or I should say 10 years looking specifically at this project, but a relationship with the vendor that goes back nearly 30 years. And so I'll also just pat ourselves on the back here as well, as again, speaking to team. We've been very successful with Mustango and Ore Finders as of late, and those two companies were successful for a number of reasons, but you can see Mustango's up 20 times in the past year. In fact, one could argue it's up more than that. When we took it over, it was a penny, and it hit as high as 35 cents at one point in time. We've been very successful in attracting capital from people like Eric Sprott, but many, many others. So the OR Group is really about three things. It's about people, projects, and capital. We bring those three things together, and I emphasize the ability to raise capital, which we will do going forward in all of our companies, and specifically QC Copper and Gold. But I think before we do that, we really need to get our story out there, which is misunderstood. There's a disconnect in value and a misunderstanding of the project itself. We want to lower our cost of capital and then raise it, and then drill this thing out and make our shareholders a lot of money. That's our objective. That's a little bit about the OR Group. A little about the macro for copper. Okay, so why is copper so interesting? Why have we taken a bet on the copper metal price? Well, let's talk about the supply side. Firstly, copper goes in everything that has an on-off switch, period. So it's got huge implications on the electrification side in the vein of Elon Musk, etc. But even before Elon Musk, let's talk about the Thomas Edisons, that side. So literally your light switches, but it's deeper than that. It's in our plumbing, it's in our bridges, our roads. Literally anything that is built has copper in it. I think that's fairly safe to say, but it's going to get juiced up on the demand side because of the electrification aspect. And I'll talk about, which I think is more important even potentially than the electrification aspect, is the infrastructure build that I think is on the horizon. From a macroeconomic standpoint, I think there is really no other choice than call it the West, Europe and the Americas, to build infrastructure to get us out of this debt quagmire that we are in. And this debt quagmire is the reason why gold has run. Okay, so that's the reason. Now the solution is going to be building these roads, bridges, airports, ports, and all of that is going to require copper. So there's going to be huge demand going forward for copper, in my opinion. And the supply, everybody knows the majority of copper, the world's biggest copper producer is Chile, and now they had world-class mines, Chuqui, Escondida, El Teniente, etc., huge behemoth deposits which are running at a fraction of their grades. Their capexes are huge. There's $20 billion in capex expected over the next 2 years just to sort of maintain the grade, and the degradation of these mines is substantial. So copper is really, they're harder to find. And if you do find them, the newer deposits, they are in very risky jurisdictions. So that's why we looked for a great copper project in a safe jurisdiction like Quebec. So the last point I'll make here is that copper price has really performed well. If you look there, copper dipped nearly to $2 in March, just in and around the PDAC. Since then, it's gone up 50%, north of $3. Companies like Freeport-McMoRan or big copper producers have performed wonderfully. As a result, that extra dollar in margin flows to their bottom line, free cash flow, etc. The juniors have not benefited that because we don't make that $3 effectively. We are only theoretically more interesting because of the copper price. Now, this same setup, the precise same setup occurred in gold, but it happened a year earlier. If you go back and you look at the charts, in and around June of 2019, the gold price started its run. It got over $1,400 and it ran to 2,000 ever since. However, the juniors, okay, the junior gold companies like Mustango, like Ore Finders, which I know firsthand, they were dead as a doornail throughout 2019. It wasn't until Q1 and of course Q2 of this year when things started to get interesting. And we knew that was going to happen. There is a lag, okay? Just as I explained, we don't benefit from the direct price increase. It takes time for that interest to, call it, filter its way through the system. The money goes to Barrick first, then it goes to IM Gold and Alamos, and then eventually it trickles down to the juniors. The same thing, the same setup is happening here with copper. And so we think over the next, call it, 3 to 6 months, there is a potential wave of interest. And that's why I say copper is coming to the junior, interest coming to the junior exploration companies, just like QC Copper, which is a $7 million market cap. We have not run, but we will. So where are we? We are in Chibougamau. And so for those who don't know, Chibougamau is right in the heart of Quebec. There's phenomenal infrastructure. There is the CN rail right to it. They are upgrading it as we speak, free of charge to the company. That is a government program that's currently underway. There is a paved road. There is a labor force. There is power right to site. You could not be in a better geographical place because of the infrastructure. These are multi-billion-dollar infrastructure line items that we do not have to build. So that does, why is that so beneficial? Well, it's kind of obvious, but I'll be obvious, and is that impacts the economics of the project. So if we don't have to spend $1 billion before we produce anything, well, that juices up the IRR and the NPV of the project. What are the other implications? Well, you can actually get away with a lesser grade. So you don't have to have huge grades that you would have to have in the middle of nowhere to justify this project. So they all go hand in hand. And the fact that all of these items are there allows us to get away with theoretically a smaller project and lower grade. Not that that's our objective. We have a sizable project. We have very good grades relative to the comparisons. We're shooting for over 1% copper equivalent is our goal, and I think we'll get there. Over and above that, Quebec itself on a broader scale, best mining jurisdiction in the world. It could be argued you have tremendous flow-through incentives. You've got the Plan Nord, which is a government infrastructure program. Not that we need the infrastructure, but there's all sorts of support. The local communities, the First Nations, the Ojibwe, everybody is mining sophisticated in Quebec. Well, not everybody, but most. It's a great place to do business. And so, as I said, we couldn't be in a better spot. More specifically, drilling down to the project level, we have the Opamisca copper mine project. As I said, it was owned and operated by Falconbridge, who is now Glencore. They pulled out well over 1 billion pounds and nearly 1 million ounces, it says right there. It was a very high grade vein system. And they went underground and it was a shaft type mining operation. We're looking at it in a very different context. There are still these high-grade veins that come to surface, particularly in the crown pillars. But where this project is really making its name is through its disseminated nature. And because Falconbridge were such good operators, they kept excellent data, which we have digitized and we modeled. Okay, and that's when we saw something very interesting, and it was that we looked at this data and it was disseminated. So we saw, and this is what the veins look like, really pure metal, pure metal. Look at that, that's phenomenal. 17% copper, it's sitting on my desk at my office. But we saw these historical grades here. So 30%, 20%, almost 9% copper over normal vein type grades. But then we looked at it in a different context and we saw 81 meters at 1%, again, 52 meters at nearly 2%. Those aren't veins, and it's not smeared. So that gave us the thesis. We saw multiple examples of this in the existing data, but we had to go and see it for ourselves. And so that's effectively what we did. We did a drill program in 2019, and you can see here we did our own drills. We saw 74 meters at nearly over 2.5% copper equivalent. And I'll say these are probably calculated at much lower copper and gold prices, but that's not important. What is important is how shallow all of this was. So very wide intersection, very good grades, near surface, 28 meters, 162 meters, over 1% copper, starting at 3 meters. So this is really at your feet with another intersection here, 2% over 62 meters. I really haven't seen intersections like this in Eastern Canada, in a sort of, certainly not in a junior company like ours. So to me, this is really interesting. We even drilled this hole here, which is 300 meters. That's 3 football fields full of almost 0.3% copper equivalent. Now that grade is, I would consider arguably that's an economic grade if you're on the rail in the middle of Quebec. However, it's not overly sexy, but why I raised this hole is because it was in an area that we were expecting to get nothing. And there's been no other drilling around that hole. So, that speaks to the expansion potential on this, what is already known. So we think this project is going to get, a good deal larger than what has been thought in the past. But we had this thesis. This thesis it's not a new idea. In fact, it's been replicated many times. Probably the most famous would be Osisko in the Malarctic. Same situation, high-grade vein system. They saw it was disseminated. They drilled it out, did a phenomenal job, got wealthy, got famous, sold it for $4 billion. Okay, so that was a phenomenal success story. Similar situation happened at Detour Lake, one of the largest gold deposits in Canada, now owned by Kirkland Lake Gold. And of course, the Cote Lake project, which is particularly close to our heart, was the first deal I ever worked on. We were involved with that, again, high-grade vein, disseminated situation. We drilled the discovery hole. It was sold to Iron Gold in 2012, and they broke ground on it a month ago. It's going to be Canada's newest gold mine. So that's exactly what we sought in this project. We saw it in the data. We went out, we raised a little money, we proved it, and now we got to go expand it. So that's where we're at. We're at the beginning of a growth story here of a disseminated deposit in the middle of Quebec in a commodity that is looking very interesting. Those are the grades again. And that's what we've proved. So, but we got to grow it. This is the intersection here. So this, you can see here, this is our conceptual pit. This is, particularly the wall there of the pit, the wall of the pit wall. We had these holes here. We hit these veins, but you can see it's disseminated throughout. It's very interesting. These are the veins, but we're getting copper mineralization all throughout here. Percent, that sort of stuff. It's very interesting to us. And I'll also note that up to here, so in this level here is the crown pillar, up to 50, even 60 meters at some point, and these veins haven't been mined, so they're still there. So that's very interesting for an open pit. Having high grade, if you can get the 10, 15, even 20% copper into the early days of your open pit, that enhances your economics. So that's on the table there. There's lots to be mined here, but really this is about the disseminated aspect. This is our next phase. So what are we going to do going forward? We are going to be drilling out the Springer. This was our planned drill program for 2020. We had pulled back because of COVID. We may have to pull back because of COVID again. Quebec is shutting down. We don't know what's going to happen, so we're not sure if we can execute this in 2020. However, if not, we'll get it done in 2021. So, but the point is we have a plan in place. It is to systematically drill this thing out, define a resource, define an economics, get more information on the crown pillars, and then move this to the Perry. As I mentioned, I'll go back a number of slides here. We have only focused our attention on the Springer. We have not even put a hole. None of our work went into Perry, although we have digitized it. We see the same sort of potential. So we see the potential for, in effect, a very large pit there. We acquired the Robitaille and the Cook subsequently. but we haven't drilled them yet. So there is still a lot of growth there outside of what we see the exploration potential on these other projects here that we've acquired. Since we've got 13,000 hectares and 12 kilometers of the Gwillim Fault. So where were we here? So this is the plan going forward. Expect us to be very busy in the days ahead, not just on the technical side, but also telling our story. I think I should emphasize that. We have been quiet because we've been preparing ourselves under the brand of QC Copper, getting the website ready, and in effect waiting for the copper market to be here, and we think the time is here. Exploration upside, it's substantial on this project. We are in the Chibougamau camp, which is, historically speaking, one of the most important copper gold camps in Canada, certainly Eastern Canada. All sorts of potential for discovery, both on the gold and the copper front here. VMS systems galore, and there's other companies in the area doing exploration. So at any point in time, there could be a discovery, a new discovery that we're unaware of. Our focus is going to be on delineating these historic mines and resources on these historic mines, but we will devote, let's say, 10 to 15% of our meters towards exploration targets, which there are many. This is our what we've done over the past 2 years, and most importantly, what we're doing going forward. The stage 2 drilling to follow up on last year's program. We're going to work towards a resource estimate, and then of course a economics and engineering to define it. Which we think should be fairly straightforward because open pits in Quebec are well known and the infrastructure is there. So certainly the early stage economics are not overly sophisticated. And where do we want to go? So when we look at our market cap, it is $7 million today. We have a huge amount of room to grow, especially when you look at the comparables. So let's just, for argument's sake, we are aiming for a larger than 1% copper, which on a comparable basis is excellent grade. Size-wise, we won't talk about that until we have our 43-101 out. However, there are reports that would put us comparables with many of these, if not all of them, except for the Hillside deposit there, which is quite large. All of these, I think, are fair comparables, and I won't say which one is best and not, but this is a good list of comps, and we can see we can climb this ladder very quickly just by developing our thesis and putting out the resource. We could all benefit by multiple expansion, and what I mean by that is the multiple that the companies or the market will pay for copper, and most particularly when the copper wave does come. We think that all of these market caps are going to go up many times, just as gold has. There wasn't too long ago that Ore Finders, which is a similar setup, but in the gold space, was a $5 million market cap. Today it's 40, okay? And that's the type of multiple return that people can expect when the wave of capital comes towards companies in the exploration business, like they're coming for copper. So, 2. Highlight, review our investment highlights. We've got a very prospective land package in Quebec. Not only is it prospective, but it's got existing known mineralization, which we've proved. We've got a unique thesis, and we're just going to grow it like that and then have the optionality for discovery. We've got a very committed team who cares about its shareholders and cares about doing good work. We are aligned. I'm a significant shareholder. I've never received free shares, and I buy in the market significantly, and I've bought well over 1 million shares over the past 4 to 6 months on the market and in private placements. We are targeting a large bulk tonnage deposit in the middle of Quebec, where I think projects will receive premiums when attention comes back to the copper juniors. And I think the fundamentals for copper are exceedingly strong right now. So that is it. I appreciate your time. Again, my name is Stephen Stewart. These are my contacts there. I'm available to our shareholders at any time. I respond very quickly. But I appreciate your time for checking out QC Copper and Gold. Symbol is QCCU on the Toronto Venture Exchange. Please have a look.